invite you to come to the podium. I invite President Advocate Gideon Jumaboko to address us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, and good morning to all of you. Good morning. Let me gratefully acknowledge the ambassador. She's new, fresh, and vibrant. A thoroughbred who has represented Botswana in different places and spaces, and she's done so with amazing aplomb. We recognize her, and we appreciate that she has accepted to come and serve her country in this capacity. We recognize all the members of the mission here and thank them for the work that they do. We also appreciate each and every one of you. I see few familiar faces, and I appreciate all. Thank you very much for being here. I had hoped that I would come here just to shake hands, do a few hugs and walk away. But it never quite happens that way, does it? So I need to engage with you and give you a bit of an update on what is happening in your country. You know very well that your country went through an election where certain no-hopers were able to write a totally different script for the country and its political landscape. And I always make this point that the biggest test and challenge for the country came at exactly that point, when those who were believed to be poised to win and win resoundingly somehow lost. And they could see that they were losing as the counting was going on. And I think everybody waited with bated breath to see what would happen. Alive to experiences from other parts of the continent and indeed the world. But the incumbent, realizing that the verdict had been decisively against him and his party, accepted the outcome gracefully, with the humility required in those circumstances, the greatest respect not to himself and his party, but to the country and its people, its democratic tradition and its standing in the world. And so he made the call long before the counting had ended, and gave an assurance to me that if it stayed the way it was at that point, he would concede. The morning of the next day, he called again and said, the counting hasn't been concluded yet, but I can see where it's going. And so I'm going to go and make the announcement. So I'll call you from the press conference I'm going to address. And he did. And he conceded publicly. It is that epic moment in the political history of the country that marks and defines Botswana as a democracy that has now passed the test of having power transferred not within the same political party, but from one party to a totally different one, in circumstances where it was totally unexpected. Always when that happens, the fear is that those who were in power would be visited with recrimination. They would be persecuted. But we're here now. The president who handed over the baton to me is in Dar es Salaam on behalf of the country, yes, but as a lead observer for, I think, the African Union in the Tanzanian elections. No persecution, no recriminations, absolute peace and tranquility in the Republic of Botswana. This is very important for us to appreciate, because we always take these things for granted. And yet history has demonstrated so many times how fragile some of these institutions and systems are, especially in our part of the world. Seeking to attain power, difficult as it was by far the easiest of the tasks that I was faced with. The biggest task has now emerged: to rebuild the country, whose economic realities you know fully well. A monosectoral economy dependent throughout the history of the country on one commodity, diamond, which served us well, raised most of us here, took us to school, the best schools, provided healthcare, infrastructure, benefited us in the country immensely. And those who came before us managed this resource as best they could. But there was also a downside to this. It would appear that we tended to believe that the diamond revenue would always be coming. And we allowed ourselves to fall into the complacency of this over-reliance on diamonds, until we were jolted out of that complacency by falling prices, the threat of synthetic diamonds, and we were woken from our sleepwalking by these harsh realities. We now had to wrestle with what we've always known all along. We must diversify the economy. We could have done it earlier under more hospitable circumstances. We did not. And I'm not raising this in order to ascribe any fault. I'm raising this to express a fact and a reality which faces us now. We did not diversify. At a certain point in the economy of the country, agriculture was contributing about 10% to the GDP. Where we sit now, I think it's at about 3%. Dangerous for any economy, any country. Very little, if any, manufacturing at all. No processing, even of the minerals that we produce. None whatsoever. We've also raised an overly dependent population that is also entitled. Well, they have never known strife. Unlike Zimbabwe, they've never suffered in the war of liberation. They've never developed the resilience that hardship sometimes brings on a people. So you can't blame them when they expect government to keep doling. And so it creates a whole constellation of expectations on the part of the populace that government will always be the benefactor in a social welfare system. We are at a point now where the resources for funding the social welfare system are non-existent, or we have very little. Just to give you an example, electricity, which is generated by power producers, is then sold exclusively to the Botswana Power Corporation, which then on-sells the power to the people. And government comes in there and subsidizes the cost of electricity. So it is supplied to BPC at a higher cost. It is sold at a lower cost to make it affordable and therefore accessible to the population. This subsidy comes to about $75 million every year. That's a huge amount of money. And it's an amount of money that the country now can ill afford. And in the next 2-3 years, the country will not be able to subsidize. It's a challenge, it's a reality. And people are looking at the government and the president and saying, he is going to make electricity more expensive than it has been. It is his problem, it is his fault. And they are watching to see what this president will do. Because if he makes it higher, we'll remove him, and they have the right to. And even where these realities are not quite fully understood. But that's not the only area where government intervenes by way of subsidizing in a clearly unsustainable way. There are many others. And the diamond revenue is not forthcoming. The next revenue earner is tourism. And you know the country operates high-end tourism, which itself has not been diversified within the tourism space. Of course, that means there's scope for more improvement, but there are structural challenges and constraints even there. We've had a challenge in the health space recently where there was, I don't want to call it shortages, there's just there were just no medicines in the government facilities. And when I inquired, it was clear that the entire process of procuring, managing, distributing was dysfunctional. It had been dysfunctional for a very long time, and there was no intervention. It became clear that this process was so layered with players and actors, layers and layers of corruption, with the result that medicines that were said to cost about 705 million pula could actually be obtained for less than 100 million. That's the staggering scale of rot and corruption embedded in the system. And so I had to step in and take measures, and the procuring entity by law is an entity called CMS, Central Medical Stores. And so I had to find a way of setting aside, even temporarily, this entity in order to address the crisis. So I invoked Section 17 of the Constitution and declared a state of emergency so that I could set up a smaller team of officers from many areas, primarily the Botswana Defence Force. And we then had to face the pressure of having to procure under these stressful conditions. So, despite the fact that we were being supplied at extortionate prices, in the short term, at least for the first month, we had to go back to these same suppliers and procure from them so that we save lives, while we were trying to establish a more reliable system of procuring medicines. We did. We also received immense assistance from others who donated. But we faced other problems. A truck would leave Gaborone with 100 boxes of some medicine. Goes to Tutu. When it gets to Tutu, only 4 boxes are available to be offloaded. Out of 100, only 4. These are things that we have experienced. So now we have to launch into a criminal investigation in the course of trying to avail medicines to our people. And in some areas, there's a center where almost everything is available. But in the smaller areas around this center, there's nothing. So medicines were being hoarded and not being distributed. So it wasn't even a question in some instances of there being no medicine. It was failure to manage and to distribute properly, and or theft. In some instances, and this happened not just in Botswana, in Namibia as well, I was told by the president, because they had a similar arrangement. They communicate, we've run out of this. There's nothing. When there are stacks and stacks of it in the warehouse. So they create a shortage. Then they raise a government purchase order to buy. And then they take these boxes and put them in the truck and drive around and come and deliver the same boxes that were removed from that warehouse. These are things that have happened that explain why we have these challenges. And just recently, it was communicated that there were no condoms, no ARVs when they were in stock. So some say it is sabotage. I don't care what it is. What I care about is that these supplies must reach the people. And so these are some of the issues that we've had to deal with. And you know, the runaway levels of unemployment. all sorts of challenges. Now, the people out there are impatient. They want answers to these problems. And I was saying to members of parliament the other day when I addressed them, I said, I'm the luckiest person in this whole world to have come in at exactly a time like this. At a time of crisis, meltdown, everything going haywire. And you walk in at exactly that point where the prospects of success are almost near. That's the best time to step into the fray. And I think I'm the luckiest in that regard. Because throughout your life you must believe you're worth something, that you're smart. And you can believe that all you want. At a certain point, those beliefs must be put to the test. And there's no better test for my own personal worth and mettle than the circumstances that I have to deal with for the country at this point of time. So I need to prove to myself, not to anybody else, I need to say to myself, did I go to Harvard to come back daft? Or am I capable of resolving these problems? I need to find solutions. I need to think, and think creatively. And this is what we are all trying to do. The situation sometimes gets worse before it gets better. But I've given an unequivocal pronouncement. I've said the country will be spectacularly different in 3 years. The first year is gone. I'm left with 2. I'm still more than committed to that undertaking. So I'm left with 2 years to spectacularly change the country. And change it, I will. I want to tell you, and I always refer to a poem by Bruce Lee, in a book. He wrote a letter to a friend of his called Jun Ri. He says, who am I? Am I a giant among men? Master of all I survey? Or an ineffectual pygmy who constantly blocks his own way? Who am I? The doubters said, man can't fly. The doers said, maybe, but we will try. And out they soared into the morning glow, while the doubters looked from down below. You must define yourself. Who are you? Are you a doubter? Or are you a doer? I'm a doer. Certainly not a doubter. Because if you're a doubter, the first person you doubt is yourself. And if your life is mined with self-doubt, then you've failed already. I'm a doer. And so I believe I'm up to the task. I believe our people are up to the task of rescuing the country. And we'll do it in the remaining 2 years. The last 2 will be a bonus. We'll have fun and party, but these 2 years are critical. Critical because the first 12 months were about learning a system that I found in place that I did not create, that I critiqued. Come in, and you have to work with it and work through it. And others are screaming at you, shouting, fire everybody. It's a very tempting approach, but one that will fail spectacularly. First, because from a practical point of view, you remove this one, you bring a new person. How long does it take for the person to be onboarded and to acclimatize and learn the ropes and understand what's happening? About 2 years. And in those 2 years, what's happening? To a country that is in crisis. So it doesn't even make practical sense at all. It's not even a question whether the president likes this or doesn't like that. It's about a pragmatic approach to real problems, not something academic. Practical truth, as Aristotle says, there's the theoretical truth and the practical truth. What does the practical truth dictate? You have to learn and leverage as you go and make these things work. And that's what I chose to do. It is not a suggestion that there are no problems, there's no dysfunctionality. The system is dysfunctional, but you have to make it work as best you can, even as you reform it. And now, the real problem, those that are there, beholden to this dysfunctional system with its rigid rules, it has become ingrained in them. When you want to buy something, there are rules, processes, and you can tell. The loyalty to these processes is not because they are efficient or cost effective. No, it is because they are wired, configured for self-benefit. That's corruption. The tender system in our country is an inherently corrupt system. Make no mistake about it. And sometimes the corruption is not even at the very top, it's somewhere in the middle. These are the folks who design the ITT. You want to buy this glass, they will describe something and go and tell their friend, put a little dimple on it, which they don't tell anybody else. And all the manufacturers, no, it's a glass, so we use it for what? For drinking and whatever else. What would the dimple add to the functional efficacy of this thing? Nothing. It's actually a waste of time and money. But they'll tell their friend, no, put a dimple. And then in the ITT, the glass must come with a dimple at this particular, and because it is that friend that must win the tender at a huge price. And there are benefits behind the scenes. This is what the process is wired to do. So when you come in and you say, I don't want this system, I'm stopping it, there's a hue and cry, even from the press. It's shocking. Sometimes it's a total shock. Look at this. The country has invested in training and educating these people. They can't think critically. They run with speculations and propaganda that doesn't make sense. This week it is this, next week it is something that is the exact opposite of that said by the same person who was peddling that last week. What kind of society is this? So, then I call all of the public officers and say, come here. Sat with them, all the procuring officers. Where do you get this thing about? This being the only method of procurement for government. Now it's in the law. So, point me to the law. Right. The law. I wait for it. So I take them to the law and I say, the law gives you 15 enumerated in the law here. 15 methods of procurement, of which this one that you are so beholden to is but just one. How about these others? No explanation. And I tell them, the 15th one actually says, and any other which the minister may from time to time determine. Why are you stuck with this one that hasn't worked and that delays procurement? Nobody can explain. It's because the force of habit and whatever else. So I've said, no tender. And others are saying, he wants to steal government money. No, I don't work like that. There's no way. But at any rate, we also have a forensic audit that is going on, whose outcomes will be brutal and devastating, I can tell you. Anybody who has stolen anything from the government must start running now. It is vicious, it is serious. It is a process that is not controlled by me. Experts, crack experts who have the skills and the expertise to identify the problems and to trace where the assets have gone. Anybody who has had anything untoward to do with government resources must know that the most stunning moment of comeuppance is around the corner. And that we took this approach so that it doesn't become a political witch hunt. Nobody says, well, they persecuted him when he was in the opposition, now it's payback time. There's no payback. Objective, scientific, proper, professional process that determines what happened. And we're not doing it to punish anybody, we're doing it in order to correct and to lay down some bright lines about not only those who were there before, but those who are there now, and those who will come in the future. Now they know there will be a forensic audit. If you steal, you embezzle, you go to jail. It's as easy as that. Doesn't matter who you are. So those who scream and wail about, this government is corrupt, no. This is the regime that brought in the forensic audit. We didn't bring it for anybody, we brought it for the government so that we can account fully. And this is what the country is going through. So towards the end of this year, I think the report will come. And we will begin the whole process of seeking to recover these assets. These guys were saying, look, the country may actually be assisted immensely once it recovers and claws back all the resources. And they were saying, as we are digging, it's so scary. We get scared ourselves. We want to stop. we freak out. We pull this string and there's a hole. But it's not for anybody. Not a witch hunt. It's so that there is full accountability. And this is what the country has to do, so that for generations that are yet to come, it is known that there will be no leader who will come and turn public resources into his private chest. No. And work. So these are the realities. And for you, those of you who are in the diaspora, I'm sharing these things with you because one of the things that I've become aware of acutely is the lack of skills. You see, we need specialized, cutting-edge, world-class competence, skills. We don't have. When I was studying in the US, I met several folks from Korea, not South Korea, coming from the best university in Seoul, sponsored by their government to study at the Kennedy School of Government, Harvard Law School, Harvard School of Medicine, MIT. And I asked one, so what's the idea here? After this, we go back. In fact, after we finish studying, we will work here for a few years, assisted by our government, to acquire experience, and then we'll go back home and we'll run our country. We've not quite structured it that way, but we've sent a few people to school on the diamond. It was an investment. You know, my alma mater was invited me to come and teach there. I said, I can't. If the idea is to advance myself. But these people here who sacrificed so much for me to go to these schools, I owe them a debt. I need to stay here and try and improve their lot. I had to make that choice. I could have gone and some of the folks that I was with, professors in universities in the US, I was an academic at heart. I could have gone, but I said, no. I owe this country and these people a huge debt. I must repay them. And so I struggled throughout in the most difficult of circumstances. I believed that the day would come. Some said, why don't you become a judge? I arrogantly said, no. I want to appoint judges. Now I sit in a position where I actually do exactly that. I appoint them. Some of them trained by myself, actually. Taught them at law school. Now I have the pleasure and the honor of appointing them judges. So, this is where we are as a country. Your contribution is to make yourself the very best that you can be alongside your peers in the world. Acquire these skills and then get the requisite experience, deep domain experience. Then go back to your country and serve your people. You can become a billionaire here and have lots of money. It's not your country. Your fulfillment, the essence of who you are, is when you go back to those people in those far-flung areas and you see the smiles on their faces when you change their lives. I know this. I'm speaking from experience. I've been to New Tade after I did the CKGR case. Old women came, they wept, they held me, they hugged me as if their life depended on that little touch and hug. There's nothing better. You can pay me billions to take that away from me. That's what it's about. So it's not money, it's not self-enrichment, self-aggrandizement. It's about these people. And when your life comes to an end, they say you must wrestle and answer one question. What kind of human being were you? Not how much money did you get? How many qualifications? No. What kind of human being were you? Who did you help? Did you associate yourself with something bigger and better than yourself? A cause for the improvement of anybody. That's it. So I see our young people today on TikTok and all over the show, it's about looking good. It's about appearances. It's about poses and postures. Faking the funk. No. There's something real. Those people are real in the CKGR all over. That man who stayed in a mortuary for 3 years, that was a real harrowing experience. And I know because I was in court arguing. And I engaged with a legal system that was unresponsive. That denigrated the very existence of a fellow human being because he happened to be a Musawa. I experienced this. And I vowed that I'm going to get into that position. And the first thing I'm going to do is to go and give this man a decent burial in his homeland. I did exactly that on the 10th of December, 2024, I was in the CKGR to bury that man. Pay a debt to the heavens up aloft and affirm my claim to be a human rights advocate. Because that's what I am. So, I raise these things with you so you understand what it's about. That country needs all of you. Needs your ideas, needs your contribution, needs your critiques, informed, that can guide, so that in the next 2-3 years you have a compelling reason to come back home, because home will be welcome and home will be the best place on the face of the earth. And so I'm happy to be here with you, and in the face of all the challenges that you see, I'm upbeat. I was upbeat. I was looking at some clip of mine on I think 6 days before the elections. I was addressing a rally, launching a candidate in Botswana. And I said, please start counting the days. On the 30th of October, there will be a change of government. I said it, and it happened. When it happened, somebody was asking me, did you celebrate? I said, no, I didn't. How did you feel? I said, that's just okay. You didn't cry? I said, no, I didn't. Why? I said, it felt as if I had lived in that moment long before it happened. And so when it happened, it wasn't anything new. It's a weird experience. I don't think you'll understand it. You know, something that you are striving for, that should be the biggest achievement. When it comes, it is almost nothing, because you feel as if I've lived this moment before. It is not anything new. That's how I felt. And to this day, there's never been a reason for me to go to celebrate. No, it's work. And so when I put in long hours, somebody was asking me just yesterday, before you became president, did you work these hours? I said, yes. In fact, I worked more there, because I would be in court the whole day, then work through the night, be in court 4 days on the trot, literally, not sleeping. And that's when my body told me, you know, if you don't sleep, just not falling asleep, just to lie down horizontally. It is so important. I realized, I learned this, because I would work through the night and I would feel disoriented. I had just to lie down, on the floor, just flat for 30 minutes, not sleeping. Then I get up, my body is now properly alive. I'll do this for 4 days, and on the 4th day, done. And then I was saying to them, the difference is that then I'll then have a 2-week window, maybe in a month, not doing anything, playing with kids, chilling, having coffee at Mug and Bean, that was my life, going out to talk to people and campaign. But now, there's no weekend, there's no night, there's no day, work until earliest midnight, times 2, 3, and my body is now, I think my body clock is confused. If I'm free and I try to sleep at 9, 10, it just doesn't work. I find myself on TikTok now. Trying to forget about everything. And there I am on TikTok until 3 a.m. then I'm able to sleep. And this is the job. And the downside is you don't go where you want. You are now public property. You know, you can't say, I'm going to check on a friend across the road. These guys will be flanking you. Hey, guys, I'm just listening. It's not your call. We have to protect you. From who? Maybe from yourself. So these are the realities, folks, and I'm glad that I've been able to come here, meet with you, and somewhat humanize the presidency. You think it's something so high and mighty, it's just a job that we have to do with humility, the best we can deploy, and bring everybody together and get the brightest minds. I was told somebody is here doing a PhD in robotics. Is he here? He was abused. It's you?
Yes, it's me, sir.
Oh, man. These forces that you guys are summoning these days are scary. Yuval Harari says you must never summon forces that you cannot control. This AI thing is going to be both a prospect for staggering progress, but also a threat that can run amok. We don't manage it well. But these are interesting times. They say in the next few years, all the lawyers will be out of the job. I heard some of you are studying intellectual property law. Who are they? Oh, you're doing intellectual property law. Brilliant, brilliant. You must tell our people back home that the person who has now the power, not the one manufacturing, is the one who has the patent. And if you don't hold the patent, you've got a problem. You'll just be at the margins of the knowledge economy, even in agriculture, really, across. So this is where we are. This is where the world is. And we need to move with the times as well. And so I'm happy that all these skills are being developed, honed, refined, and now you're going to have to go back home and assist in crafting laws that regulate. You know how these manufacturers play the game? They'll take something that they have long discovered. They don't change anything. They don't improve anything. They just change the packaging. And they go and register the patent afresh. They evergreen. They keep the patent green. When it's supposed to expire, they tweak this thing a little bit and they put it out there. And if you don't understand, you think something massive has happened. It's nothing. It's just a con game. So you need to be able to ask the right questions. You will help us ask them whether the efficacy of this has been enhanced. If the answer is no, it's not patentable. So these are skills that we need in our country. We need them because issues of provenance when it comes to manufactured products, provenance, does this thing originate in Botswana? Some will say no, it doesn't, because some of the ingredients or some of the things that were used, the materials came from elsewhere. At what point now is it a Botswana product? You market it as such. These are some of the questions. So there's a lot that is required, skills that we need, and I'm happy that we have a few of our people that are acquiring these skills and positioning themselves to come back into the country and hold those positions and to guide and direct the country. So thank you very much, folks. I wish I could spend the whole day here with you, but it's insanely busy. We need to help your country get better. And I'm here to meet investors and tell them why they must go and invest. Force some of them to go and invest. And so far it seems to be working. It seems to be working really well. And even our acquisition of DGS, there's a whole debate around that. unshakable in our resolve to take full ownership of this resource because it's ours. Whether people buy it or they don't, it is our resource. We will find a way. We will know what to do. It's ours, isn't it? So, and then we also diversify our economy in many different ways. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, folks, and keep representing your country. You are our ambassadors as well. When you behave and you don't do what others did in the UK, go there and apply for asylum and make all sorts of untruthful allegations. Fleeing ritual killings. We are fleeing persecution on the basis of sexual orientation. We're a human rights government. We haven't persecuted anybody, and we won't do that. What is your problem? You know, so they tarnish the country. You guys haven't done that. I think you've been exemplary representatives of your country. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, very much, Mr. President. We have heard, and I think we can all confirm that you will do whatever it takes to also contribute to the vision that you have for the country, and to see that in 2 years, we have done what we need to do to support you in that vision. Before the end of our program, or as we move closer to the end of our program, I'd like to ask Ms. Masejo Mazuruse to give us a vote of thanks.
Your Excellency, President Advocate. Mr. President, Advocate Duma Boko, distinguished guests, dignitaries here present. That might be old school. Don't blame me. I don't come from official circles. On behalf of Botswana living in Switzerland, I extend our heartfelt gratitude for taking the time to meet with us today. Your presence here affirms the value our government places on every Botswana, whether in Gaborone, in Khanzi, or in Geneva. Recognizing that wherever we are in the world, we remain an integral part of Botswana's story and its future. We're encouraged by your leadership and by recent policy developments that strengthen inclusion and justice at home, from the recognition of language rights of minority groups to the advancement of indigenous people's rights, including what you have demonstrated for us as humility, dignity in action, in what you just shared about people's experiences in Ukadi, the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, of a government that sees, recognizes, and works with them. These mark meaningful steps towards a more equitable and cohesive nation. These developments, Mr. President, not only affirm our shared values of equity and participation, but they also enhance Botswana's global reputation as a nation that is rooted in justice, in sustainability, and in good governance. Such progress lays the foundation for greater confidence from international partners and investors. It signals that Botswana is open, forward-looking, and ready for responsible foreign direct investment that benefits communities while driving national growth. For our young people, and children meeting the president is a moment that they will carry for a very long time in their lives. It affirms that their identity, inspires their aspirations, and reminds them that they are seen and valued no matter where they are in the world. As you were speaking about their TikTok and the time that they spend on it, I saw them draw out their phones. I think you've gained yourself new followers. We leave this gathering re-energized, proud, and hopeful for a Botswana we continue to build together, including learning new language, Your Excellency, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.